The AYN Thor could be the most universally loved handheld of the year, and honestly, I get it. It's a contemporary Nintendo DS that can play all the way up to your Steam library. But if you're a busy parent like me who doesn't have too much time for gaming, let alone setting up endless Android emulators, there's a lot more to consider here than just Nintendo nostalgia. Just a quick glimpse of the Thor, it's easy to see why this device is so popular. Android devices have been edging their way towards this dual screen form factor for quite a while now, but the Thor is the first one that absolutely nails it. The clamshell design offers ultimate portability, and when you open it up, inside you'll find two beautiful OLED displays. The top screen is 6 inches and offers 120Hz refresh rate. It's the same panel that's found in the Odin 3. Beneath it you'll find a 60Hz 3.92-inch display, and while maybe it's a shame that they didn't match the refresh rate across both screens, the way the two interact is pretty incredible. From the default settings, you just have to tap on the display you want to operate at any given time, and it will then make that display active, so all the controls will simply work with it. Each display can simultaneously run separate apps or even games, and the bottom screen becomes a great hub for all of your settings whenever you want to play the game in a single screen mode. The fact it can pull off this kind of multitasking without ever seeming to harm performance is a real testament to the chips that AYN Thor have put inside the device. There are actually 4 models to choose from Lite all the way up to Max, although Lite is no longer available for pre-order on the AYN website. The main 3 that you want to look at are going to be those Base, Pro and Max models, which all run the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. The base model comes with 8GB, but you can bump that all the way up to 16GB on the Max version, and that will even give you a terabyte of storage. Of course, you'll have to pay for that privilege. In this video, I'm reviewing the Pro model, which comes with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. I did buy this with my own money, and the ordering process was pretty straightforward. I placed my order, I paid a little extra for DHL shipping, and about 2 weeks later, my Thor eventually came through the door. If you do order accessories, they'll probably ship it in a separate package and that will come separately, but at least to the UK, I didn't get any import duty, anything like that. The only thing I had to pay for was the product and the shipping. Of course, the AYN Thor really excels with DS emulation on Melon DS or 3DS emulation using Azahar, both of which are pretty incredible experiences on this modern dual screen device. You can run all the way up to some very recent Nintendo devices on the AYN Thor, and with the help of GameHub or GameHub Lite, or a kind of ad tracking free version of GameHub, you can actually download Steam games onto this and play through them as well. Of course, it's not going to hit the heights of a Steam Deck, but you can definitely load this up with indie titles from your Steam library. With a 6000 mAh battery, you're going to get 2 to 8 hours of battery life depending on what you're playing. This is not to say that using Android is a perfect experience. It's still absolutely not. It can be tricky to navigate around the system at times. I get myself into a right mess with displays turning themselves upside down and not loading a certain app properly, but it's just something you've got to live with on Android 13. It also may not be as easy as you would expect to just use some pretty standard services like PlayStation Remote Play. You can download the Remote Play app, you can connect it to your PS5 and boot it up, but once you're in there, it's not going to recognize the controls because the Android app expects an external Bluetooth controller. If you do want to stream your PS5 to your AYN Thor, then you'll have to get a third-party app, something like Chalky. The beauty of Android, on the other hand, is you can connect to a whole host of other services. You can browse the web with Chrome, which allows you to even access your Google Sheets if you need to. You can obviously download all of your streaming apps like Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and watch movies on that OLED display. It can be quite cool to do that in bed. It's also really handy for looking up walkthroughs and just checking things about games that you've completely forgotten because you haven't played them in like 15 years.
How to perform finishes on SmackDown 2.
As you can see, I'm pretty enthusiastic about the Thor. I absolutely love it. But it's not been perfect for everyone, and so I want to take a closer look at the device now and talk about some of those issues. The launch of the Thor has not been without its issues. That's generally the case for these handheld emulators. They're not produced by companies with the resources or the experience of Nintendo or Sony. Even though they do look and feel really great in the hand,
there can be underlying issues that only pop up a few weeks or months after they've been produced. That's especially true when it comes to a dual screen emulator that uses a hinge like this, which could fail after 100 rotations, maybe after 100,000, but at some point the pressure on that hinge is going to show. People have reported hairline cracks across the hinge, which is ostensibly due to wear and tear, but AYN actually came out on Discord and gave an explanation to this, and it's all about how the plastic sets in the mold when they're actually producing the products. And some people have actually backed up what AYN have said and suggested that if you do see this sort of crack here, it's actually more of a cosmetic issue than a functional one. So we've just got to hope that long term AYN can first of all sort the subsequent batches out so that they can kind of get rid of this blemish and maybe ease people's worries a little bit, but also that those people who do have the cracks on the hinge won't experience any issues going forward. The hinge itself snaps into 3 different positions, just like an OG DS. Following the most recent firmware update, when you actually shut the lid, it's going to pause the game and essentially put it to sleep. And I've found that the latent battery life has massively improved since I installed that firmware update. The device was switching itself on in people's bags and overheating, so that firmware update will also solve that issue, hopefully. You open it up though and it's just going to come straight back on to where you left. Honestly, this is a really well put together device. You have this kind of smooth plastic on the back and sides, but over the top of the dashboard you have this glass finish which makes it really smooth and gives it a very sort of premium feel. There are cutouts for the joysticks so they don't interfere with the top screen when it closes, and they're quite deep and give you quite a lot of room to maneuver despite the fact they do look quite small. I have found using them to be completely fine. I probably wouldn't want to like play a shooter on this, but for the sort of handheld games that I like to play, it's been more than enough. The D-pad is really nice, it's just very clicky. You can be very sort of sure of yourself when you're gaming, there's not too much lag or anything like that, and I feel like for pretty much every game you're going to have a nice experience using this D-pad. Then you have the A, B, X and Y buttons. They're a little bit squeaky, to be honest. Like when you rub your thumb over them, it's going to make like a bit of a squeaking sort of sound, but when you actually sort of press them, they feel very firm, they snap back very quickly, you get a nice satisfying click. And yeah, playing this device, you're just going to feel like all of these face buttons are very reliable and responsive. You've also got a few buttons around the corners of the screen which will help you navigate Android and also your emulator settings, things like that. And of course you've got that little home button here. When I first got the Thor, I kept confusing these buttons with these 2 little pads which just protect the display when it's closed. But you kind of get used to that pretty quickly. You've got 2 front-facing speakers here which sound really good. Considering the size of this device, I think it's got a really rich sound to it. And I think this is a microphone here. It could also be some kind of light sensor, but I do think it's a microphone. You've got a volume up and down button. This, for me, is the wrong way around because I'm used to using an iPhone where if you kind of had the display on the side like this would be the volume up and this would be the volume down. So for me this is the reverse order, and that might just catch you out at first. You've got your power button here, and then you've also got USB-C port for charging or transferring data. You've got a headphone jack, and you've also got this little hatch where you can stow an SD card. On the back of your device you've got your ventilation. It's not going to get too hot unless you're really pushing it. You do go up into the max mode, it can get quite loud. It doesn't have that super high pitch that the AYN 3 has been reported to have, so that's good, but it's, you know, it's not too loud, and you very rarely need them unless you're really pushing the device. The top of the device is made with this kind of smooth plastic. It feels really nice in your hands, but probably my least favorite aspect of the Thor's design are these triggers. The shoulder buttons, lovely, nice and clicky. You can sort of click them from pretty much all angles, even including from the side, which is really useful in this form factor, the way you're going to be holding it. But I'm not a fan of these triggers. They sort of rotate around an axis, I guess, rather than, you know, this feeling that you're sort of pushing down into the device. I can see how they might feel a lot more like pulling like the trigger of, I'm going to say, a water pistol, because I've never fired a gun, but I find them like, I don't know, just a little bit flappy, and I'm not really into this sort of like wobbly aspect.
In any case, I think the AYN Thor is a portable powerhouse, and it's become my go-to option to throw in a bag or even my pocket and take outside the house.
Let's start with accessories, and one in particular that you might be looking to pick up is a stylus, because while you can absolutely navigate both of these touchscreens with your finger or thumb, you'll notice that some of the touch targets are actually quite small. If you do have a DS stylus knocking about like this one, you'll be a bit disappointed to learn that it's not going to work on the Thor, because these are just different screen technologies compared to what the original DS was like. One option that's worth checking out is this Nintendo Switch stylus, which was originally released in Japan for the Nintendo Switch, but never made it to the UK or the US. The good news is you can pick it up on Amazon for around £15, and it's going to give you a lot more precision in terms of those touch targets. This will just make navigating the UI, particularly of that bottom screen, a lot easier, and it's very useful in browsers as well. But of course we can use it in games too, like in this Japanese language learning game, which I had back in the day on my mum's DS, I think, and it will just help you show the world how bad you are at Japanese. Nope. It has a padded tip that's not going to do any damage to your Thor at all, and it's incredibly lightweight and portable, so it's definitely worth picking up, I think. It's got pretty decent reactivity, it's not going to lag too much, and all in all, you know, it's a pretty nice experience. AYN do make quite a lot of their own accessories though, and I think the one that most people are going to be drawn to is this grip. So this slots underneath your Thor and just gives you a little bit more purchase on the device. You've got all the cutouts you need here to access every aspect of the device, including a nice little cutout here for ventilation, and it's just going to give you a little bit more of a comfortable holding experience for longer periods. The actual feel of this grip is a little bit more rubbery in the center, but then as you get to these little handles, it's quite hard, and you do have like a bit of a texture on there. You can get stickers which will help you to stick this down in place and really commit to it, but if you don't put them in, it will kind of be prone to sliding around a little bit. The trade-off is that, you know, you'll never be able to take it off, and I actually do prefer gaming in this format most of the time, just kind of getting my hands tucked in there really cozy and really just getting into a groove. But I have been playing with the handles on quite a bit too, and certainly for some games where you want a little bit more distance to the joysticks, then it can definitely be a nice experience. I did mention on my last video that there is a little gap when you close the device between the two screens, and this grip does actually help to close that. Not entirely, but definitely mitigates some of that wobble which could do additional damage to the hinge. The mold of this grip is also going to fit perfectly in this soft shell case, also by AYN. So again, this looks and feels like a really nice case. It's got the AYN logo on there, and if you lift it up, you can see it just slots in perfectly with the grip in there, so you can carry everything in one bundle. It's going to be a little bit less portable like this, not going to fit in your pocket. You do get a nice little mesh compartment here where you can store things like your stylus. One thing I would point out about this case is that it really smells bad. It has just like this sort of plasticky artificial stench that has actually rubbed off onto this grip itself, and now having left the grip in here for a few days, the grip itself even stinks of this horrible plastic. It's genuinely bad enough to mean that I would not recommend this case to people, even though I really appreciate its utility and otherwise it feels and looks great. That stink, man, I really want to know how to get rid of it. Actually, for most people, the better option might be this little transparent case that you can also get with the Thor. Now this is going to work very much like a phone case. You can clip one side onto the top of your screen here, onto the top screen, and then the second one just kind of clips onto here like this as well. You do also get stickers here, but the only place you're really going to notice it coming loose are sort of towards the corners of the device. Otherwise, you know, it's definitely a nice little protective layer that sort of surrounds your Thor, keeps it pocketable, and is actually a little bit more grippy than the sort of smooth plastic that you get on the Thor itself. When I first got this, I thought it felt a little bit cheap. It's not quite as premium as you would get on most kind of phone cases these days, but it definitely isn't too bad. It gets a little bit sweaty for longer periods, but if you are taking this out and about and you really want to keep it very safe, then it might be worth it. Also, if you want to put stickers on the top of your Thor, then having this case on top can just help to keep them laminated, if you will. Another one that you might want to look at to keep your Thor safe is this lanyard. So this is going to slot into those corners here. It can be quite tricky to actually get it in there and tie it off, which is why I haven't committed to it at the moment, because it's just not really my style, to be honest. But I can say it is quite a nice lanyard in its own right. It feels very premium, and you know, it might appeal to your fashion sense more than mine. But yeah, it's a nice little pickup. And I should mention as well, because you do get all of these little accessories in this bundle and you want somewhere to put them, AYN did ship this nice little pouch which you can just store all the accessories that you're not using. This one doesn't stink, it actually feels quite nice, and it's quite roomy as well, so you can keep things like your charging cable in there, the lanyard, the grip when you're not using them. All in all, it's quite a nice little storage option. Here's the thing though, if you've got the option of buying all of these accessories compared to upgrading from maybe the base to the Pro or the Pro to the Max, I actually think it might be worth just going for the more powerful model, because while I do really like all these accessories, each one of them has their own drawbacks in a way, and in the end, I think you'll probably appreciate having a bit more power.
It's still early days and most of those accessories were created by AYN, but these devices often have great communities around them which will offer things like 3D printed accessories that you can pick up on Etsy, so just keep an eye on the community and see what people come up with. I'm sure if you don't like any of those accessories too much, there will be something for you later down the line. And that is, again, an amazing aspect of this community. It's the lengths people are willing to go to tinker with these devices and get the most out of them.
The great thing about an Android handheld is it's really flexible. It's going to run loads of systems, loads of different kinds of apps. But the trade-off is you're going to spend a lot of time tinkering with this device to get it set up exactly how you like it. Just look at this settings menu. This is one of the more simple options that you have to sort of control your device, and there's a lot here, right? You can switch between 120 FPS or 60 FPS mode. For the most part, if you're gaming using the top screen, I'd recommend leaving this in 120 FPS. If you do want to play something on both screens, then you can switch it into 60 FPS, and then that will eliminate this screen tearing. AYN did issue a firmware update which has mitigated some of this screen tearing, but in my testing I can definitely still see it when the device is running on 120 FPS. Scrolling up and down on this, you're going to get a lot of jelly scrolling, and you know, that's not really what you're going to be using the device for primarily, so I can live with it, but it's just something to let you know about. But yeah, if it's really bad for your eyes, then just keep it on 60 FPS mode. You've got lots of other settings around here, like you can, you know, set the fans to run how you like. For most people, just leave it on smart mode and it's going to do a good job. You can switch between performance modes. Again, I very rarely have to go onto the high performance mode. Okay, Balatro is not a super power hungry game, but it is running through Windows emulation, and I've got this device currently just set on the standard mode, and it's doing a pretty good job keeping it at stable 59 frames per second. That's decent. You can customize this device as much as you like, from the thumbnail sticks, which you can sort of play around with the colors and do all sorts with, wallpapers, the look and feel of the device. There's just so much that you can tinker with in the settings here. When you're setting up the device, you'll get the choice of using just like a stock Android launcher or using this AYN one that I've got here. You can set it up with shortcuts to apps you want to use for games or entertainment. productivity and systems apps. Just leaving this on games, and it allows me to tap into my emulators and just get into my games libraries. If you're new to Android, you might think that you can just get your games on here and you're good to go. But unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. You will have to go into the settings of every individual emulator that you set up and just make sure that you've got everything configured for the ROMs on your library. That includes going into the controls and mapping them to your actual device. Once you've done that, you can get into infinite fiddling with things like widescreen cheats, shaders, all that kind of stuff. You can really get lost down a rabbit hole. And to be honest, a lot of people do just buy these devices to fiddle with them and barely ever play any games. And honestly, I can understand why. But just know it's going to take you, a good few hours to get set up to even start playing games on this thing.
The question, if you are more of a casual gamer, is do you have the time and energy to put into setting these devices up exactly how you want them? When it comes down to it, it's very easy to see why everybody loves the AYN Thor. Not only does it bring back that nostalgia from your teens or childhood, it's also a brilliant device in its own right that can get you playing all the way up to your Steam library on an exceptional top OLED display, 6 inches and 120 Hz, and that bottom display, beautiful in its own right, but also very versatile and comes in very handy when multitasking or just doing things like browsing and setting up the device. If you are going to go for this device, I really recommend that you at least pick up the Pro and maybe even think about the Max if you do want to try Steam games on here, just because 1TB of storage is going to be plenty for downloading those indie titles. There are those of us who just love to tinker and barely ever play any games. That's completely fine. You know what you're in it for, go and do it. But if you're the sort of person who gets frustrated setting up apps and doesn't have the patience to sit through like a 30-minute walkthrough on YouTube to get a single emulator running, then the AYN Thor may not be for you, and it might just be worth checking out a Steam Deck or something like that. Watch this video if you want a better idea of how I've been actually using the AYN Thor so far. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.